going to talk about our decimal place value. So we're going to use these models here to talk about decimals and how much each value is for each place value in that decimal. So the first thing to think about is the size of your whole number. So here's the best example. What if I said I ate a whole pizza? Oh my goodness, Mrs. Regan, that's a lot of pizza, right? Well, it really depends on if I'm talking about a whole large pizza, or if I ate a whole medium pizza, or what if I ate a whole small personal pizza? The size of the whole can change, so the size of that whole is different. So it's always important the first time that you're looking at something to look at what the size of the whole is. In this situation, in this black corner up here, it tells me that the whole we're going to talk about today is a red cube. So when I'm thinking about this, I always have to stop and look at that important information. What is the size of the whole that we're talking about here? So knowing that that one red cube is a whole, then down here when I'm looking at this, that red cube, I can think of that whole as $1. Okay, one cube is $1. So if the red cube is one whole, then look at this blue flat. How many of these flats do you think it will take to fill up the whole? Think of this as Legos or building blocks. If I take that flat, how many can I stack side by side by side by side to fill up this whole red cube? Any guesses? I'll give you a hint. There are 1,000 squares in this red cube, and there are 100 squares in this blue flat. That's right, it's going to take 10 flats to fill up that one whole cube. So now let's move to an even smaller model, this green rod. There are 10 squares in this green rod. This is something that we learned all the way back in second grade. 10 squares in this green rod. So how many of these rods will it take to fill up one whole red cube? Any guesses? 100. Very good. It would take 100 of these green rods stacked side by side by side and then on top of each other to fill up one whole red cube. So now let's look at our smallest unit. I call these the mini units. There's one square here. How many of these little squares would it take to fill up one whole red cube that has 1,000 in them? Listen to the clue word there. Very good. It would take 1,000 yellow mini units to fill up one whole red cube. So now let's keep thinking. If I have my red cube, which I know now is one whole, these flats, which I know take up 10, these green rods, which I know would take 100 to fill up my whole, and these yellow mini units, which I know would take up 1,000, I can use this to name my place value that I would use. For instance, this one whole red cube is going to be my ones. It would take one of these to equal my whole. Then there's my decimal point. Remember, the decimal point, anything that comes after that, means it's a piece of something. I'm not going to eat a whole pizza. I'm just going to eat a piece of my pizza now. So these flats, if it takes 10 to fill up a whole, we're going to call the flats my tenths place. My rod, any guesses here using our keyword? Good, we call that our hundredths place. And then my mini units, any guesses? Good, that's our thousandths place. When you're looking and trying to figure out decimal place value with models like these base 10 blocks, it's really helpful to have something like this right here. You can draw it out in a picture on your paper. You can pull up this example and have it frozen on your computer or your Chromebook, but always be looking, okay, my cube is my ones, my flats are my tenths, my rods are my hundredths, and my mini units are going to be my thousandths. So now let's use these units here. Again, my ones, my tenths, my hundredths, and my thousandths to figure out what number this model, this pile of blocks down here at the bottom shows. So let's look at these. How many of the ones cubes do we see? 1, 2. There are 2, which tells me I can put a 2 right there in my ones place value. Now I'm moving into my pieces past my decimal. How many tenths flats do we see? 1, 2, 3. So I can put a 3 in my tenths place right there. What about my hundredths? Good, there are 6 rods. So I'm going to put the 6 in my hundredths place. Now, how many of my yellow mini units? There are 2. There are 2 thousandths. It would take 1,000 to fill up a whole red cube. I don't have 1,000. I only have 2 out of my thousandths. So this number is 2 and 362 thousandths. Great job. Let's try another one. So look at our model here. Again, if we're being asked to name the number of the model down here, I want to make sure that I understand my place value up above. So if this red is a whole, then I'm going to call that my ones. The flat is going to be my tenths. The green is going to be my hundredths. And the yellow is going to be my thousandths. So let's look at this model down here. Think about what numbers you would put in each place value. What am I going to put in my ones place? Do I have any ones? I would put a 0 in my ones place. There's no 1 wholes. There's nothing in this model to show a whole. I don't have any dollar bills. What would I put in my tenths place? A 5. There are 5 tenths. I need 10 of them to fill up my whole, but I only have 5, so 5 tenths. My next number in the hundredths place? A 3. There's a 3 hundredths. It would take 100 green rods to fill up my whole, but I only have 3 of them. And lastly, there are 6 thousandths. So what number does this model show? 0 and 536 thousandths. Keep trying with your decimal place value. Again, you can always freeze this YouTube video here if you need to step back and take a look again, play with your base 10s, or ask your teacher for some of the virtual manipulatives where you can build some of these on your own. Great job!